Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The Métis National Council has released a report on the existence of 7 Métis communities in Ontario, and it's drawn the ire of several First Nations and Métis governments in Canada, including the MMF, MNS, MNBC, and the Chiefs of Ontario, who are questioning the validity of the claims. APTN's Sierra Bettens has more.
On Thursday, the Métis National Council released a 260-page review suggesting the existence of 7 Métis communities in Ontario. But by Friday morning, the Métis Nation of British Columbia, Métis Nation Saskatchewan, and the Manitoba Métis Federation all released statements opposing it. In a Friday interview with APTN, MNO President Margaret Froh said that in 2021, an expert panel was established with representatives from each of the 4 governing members of the MNC. 2 of those governing members have since left the MNC.
Those 4 panelists together worked over the course of a year to review all of the available information. They issued an open call for any interested party to make submissions. They reviewed as they report, over 50,000 pages of documentation.
Froh says the panel assessed the existence of the communities based on 4, quote, threads: ancestry, political action, common social and cultural characteristics, and land and waters. She said the review suggested that all 7 communities met the criteria.
If a community can't show those various threads, they wouldn't essentially form a complete SASH. They wouldn't meet the test.
In a Friday interview with APTN, MMF Minister Will Goodon took issue with the report.
There was the assumption that there was a small part of Ontario that was included into the historic homeland, but unbeknownst to the rest of the nation, MNO was finding these new communities here, there, and everywhere. We actually left the Métis National Council because of the absolute need to take a stand to protect the integrity of the actual nation.
Last August, a University of Saskatchewan report by Métis scholars prepared for the MNC suggested the MNO's conception of Métis identity relied heavily on individual genealogy rather than community relations.
This idea that it's about the individual, and they've got this individual has root ancestors supposedly coming from a community, there's still no connection to the nation. And the connection can be through kinship connections, which if you look at our nation, we're related.
On Friday afternoon, the Chiefs of Ontario published a press release dismissing the MNC's report. Lake Huron Regional Chief Scott McLeod told APTN he's concerned about the implications on First Nations rights.
It's not just about our resources, our moose, our deer, our forests, our medicines, but now, even our program dollars are being affected by this.
However, Froh sees the report as an opportunity to establish a dialogue with First Nations.
We are doing our part to try and share this information with our First Nations neighbors and sometimes kin. And the expert panel report is another piece of information that we'll be sharing and hopefully opening some dialogue.
The full report can be accessed on the Métis National Council's website, métisnation.ca. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A family in Saskatchewan is still searching for their missing daughter 8 years after her disappearance. They say their only wish is to bring her home. Video journalist Rachel May was at the demonstration.
And it's almost like we don't matter anymore. Happy doesn't matter more. Happy they don't seem to think is a person, a human, a mother, a grandmother. They think of her as a number and that she doesn't matter, and it's got to change.
Happy Charles went missing on April 3rd, 2017. 8 years later, the family is questioning why more hasn't been done to follow up on tips and encourage the public to come forward with answers. Charles was last seen on surveillance footage at the Prince Albert Collegiate Institute with a timestamp just 10 minutes before midnight. Over the years, her family remains determined to bring her home. Charles's stepfather, Carson Poitras, said the Prince Albert Police Service has made many promises to continue the search, but he has seen no evidence of action.
So we're here to rally, to get the police to acknowledge that they aren't doing their job and that they might have to do more, and that they possibly have to, we possibly have to move the file to somebody else who can get the job done for us.
As the search continues, the family is asking the public for any information they may have, regardless of its nature. Happy's mother, Regina Poitras, believes someone must know something and urges them to come forward.
And if anybody has any tips out there, that may be the one that breaks the case. So please come forward. No matter how much you think it's a small tip, just come forward. We're not looking for any convictions. We're just looking to bring her home.
Prince Albert Police Service said in a Facebook post, this is an active investigation, and so far they have followed up on more than 120 tips and encourages the public to come forward with any information they may have. Happy's family wasn't alone. The family of Ashley Morin, who went missing from North Battleford on July 10th, 2018, drove from North Battleford to Prince Albert to show their support at the demonstration. Morin's sister, Janine Morin, said she wouldn't wish the pain of having a missing loved one on anyone.
This is a part of a family that no one ever wants to be a part of. You know, sadly that we got to know Regina and Carson this way. You know, in some sense, I feel that we are alone. But then when we come together, as like today, it warms the heart that you know that they're always there with you, regardless what you're going through.
Krista Fox, who lost her grandson to murder in 2020 and is a family friend of the Morins, reminds everyone that each of these missing and murdered individuals was loved by someone.
Have a little bit of empathy, and anybody who may be listening, think for 2 seconds. Like we say, we don't wish this upon anybody, but be a little empathetic and think for a second. For over 2,000 days, you wake up and you have no idea where your child is. For those of you that are sitting at home that get to tuck your babies in every night, get to call your daughter and check on her, that is the most important message.
Anyone with information about Charles or Morin's whereabouts can contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Rachel May, APTN National News, Prince Albert.
To the election trail now, and candidates in the Pontiac-Kitigan-Zibi riding in Western Quebec have kicked off their 2025 federal election campaigns. And there are two new faces to federal politics who have joined the race. Here's Annette Francis with more.
Gilbert White Duck is no stranger to First Nation issues. He's an ex-chief at Kitigan-Zibi First Nation. White Duck also worked in many other areas for his community, including health, social services, and education. When someone asked him about running for the NDP, he had to think about it carefully.
I know that. You know, that you're getting into the belly of the beast, and the beast can easily swallow you, and digest you really easily. But I believe that at this stage in my life, that I'm strong enough to stand up to it and take the blows when they come.
The Pontiac-Kitigan-Zibi riding is one of the largest in Western Quebec. With a population of over 100,000, it also includes the Algonquins of Barrier Lake. White Duck says for the Algonquins, there are concerns around housing and program needs.
But the big one, as we well know, is about land, and to ensure that the land is not invaded because of mining, pipelines and that kind of thing without full, consultation, accommodation.
Group that brought the Meredith Center here.
Okay.
Because initially it was not supposed to happen.
Another new face running for the Conservative Party is Brian Nolan.
Okay.
Right at the end there, show me the doctor.
He's lived in Chelsea, Quebec for over 30 years. The community is located 20 minutes north of Ottawa. Nolan has worked as a civil servant, an entrepreneur, and hemp farmer. He says families are struggling. Lack of work in the riding is a big issue, and mining could help.
The Pontiac is one of the poorest MRC in the whole province of Quebec, and we are rich in natural resource, and we have to do something about it. So everything that we do in the Pontiac, we export or we send it to another city when we have the manpower and the will to create business, to create industry, and transform the goods that we have in this riding.
Liberal incumbent Sophie Chattel was first elected in 2021. Chattel says food security, the economy, environment, and mining are the hottest topics of discussion when she's out campaigning. She says when it comes to mining, consultation and transparency is important.
We need to engage with Indigenous communities across Canada as partner, not as an afterthought. So the consultation, I'm not even thinking about consultation. I think we should go further than UN drop. We have to really engage as economic and partner in every single energy project from the get-go. They have to be at the table, and for a lot of projects.
While the candidates continue with their campaigns, they'll be preparing for a debate next week. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
A new workshop has wrapped up that helps expecting parents who live hours away from hospitals. That story and more still to come. Welcome back. The Decho First Nation has wrapped up a month-long series of virtual workshops aimed at expecting and new parents in remote communities. Our Yellowknife journalist Bruce De La Cruz has more.
The territory of the Decho First Nations covers over 200,000 square kilometers and is home to about 3,000 people. But there is no birthing facility. This is why Haley Lafferty Ntsitsa, her partner, and her 6-year-old drove 8 hours from Fort Simpson to have baby Maggie at the Stanton Hospital in Yellowknife.
Our health center is not equipped for births, and our nurses and doctors are on in and out schedule, like rotation. So lately there has been short staffed, and they were just the low staff here and not being equipped. Everybody has to go.
Her work health benefits covered most of Haley's expenses, but some unforeseen costs still turned up.
But on the way back, I had a C-section, so I couldn't drive. We flew. We had to end up paying for our 6-year-old's flight.
And how much was the flight, by the way, for the 6-year-old?
$600.
Stories like this is what led Kristen Tanche, director of the Decho First Nations Health and Wellness Division, to take action.
We decided to host a slew of a workshop series to get more information out to our region and our community members about what programs and services are currently available to them when it comes to different things that are involved with birthing.
The workshops are the first step in reconciling the lack of resources for expecting parents, which stems from generations of traditional practices being suppressed by colonialism and the residential school system.
These events and these things have really influenced a lot of people's cultural knowledge and their ties to their culture. These new cultures and new ways of being were imposed on our people. And so, of course, there's going to be a disruption of our cultural practices, including giving birth.
Kristen is hopeful that with these new workshops, that the knowledge will return.
And this is how it's been told to me by different elders and people in the region, that our language and our culture and these practices have not been lost, that they are sleeping, and that we can refine them and we can reclaim them and relearn them. I think that it's so key to bring back a lot of those cultural practices and start really bringing those to the forefront. And why not begin at the very beginning, when the mother and the parents are pregnant, when they're expecting from the moment that they give birth.
Although Haley is glad that Maggie was born happy and healthy, she looks forward to the day when home birthing becomes a reality in Fort Simpson.
It would be amazing to not have to leave home and have somebody here that could deliver babies, or even a midwife. The whole midwife workshop was amazing to listen into, and they made everything sound so awesome. I wish I gave birth kind of in Hay River.
After positive feedback from parents, the Decho First Nations is looking to host more workshops in the future and eventually create a permanent birth worker program to serve the area. But for now, parents and mothers will have to continue to travel to Yellowknife to welcome new life into the world. Bruce De La Cruz, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Thanks, Bruce. APTN Investigates is wrapping up a 3-part series on policing this Saturday. We'll speak with reporter Rob Smith about his documentary after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And Jason Crushane wanted to share how Louis likes to get comfortable before watching a movie on APTN, no doubt. Thanks for sharing, Jason. If you have a picture to share, send it to share@aptn.ca, and you might be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, cloudy and +7 in Halifax, showers and 6 in Fredericton. Cloudy and -7 in Kuujjuaq, 4 below in Nain. 7 in Montreal, +1 with flurries in Chibougamau. +3 and snow in Sault Ste. Marie, 7 in Ottawa. +1 with flurries in Thunder Bay, -2 and snow in Sioux Lookout. -3 in God's Lake and Thompson, 2 below in Norway House. 2 above in Winnipeg and Dauphin. 8 in Regina, 5 in Saskatoon. 10 in Meadow Lake, -4 in Uranium City. In northern Alberta, 18 in Peace River and Grand Prairie. 12 and sunny in Edmonton, 14 under sunny skies in Lethbridge. 16 in Vancouver, 18 in Kamloops. 14 in Prince George, 16 above in Smithers. +1 in Old Crow, 9 in Whitehorse. -6 in Yellowknife, +6 in Norman Wells. 11 below in Sax Harbor, -3 in Pawlatuck. -13 with snow in Baker Lake and Whale Cove. -23 in Resolute, 15 below in Iqaluit. For more than 2 decades, Indigenous peoples standing up for their rights have faced the full weight of the state's power. From frontline clashes with specialized RCMP units to being watched by Canada's intelligence agency. Government actions have been coming under renewed scrutiny. But coming up tomorrow night on the conclusion to their special 3-part series, Inside Policing, APTN Investigates asks, who's watching the watchers? With more on the episode, we're joined by investigative video journalist Rob Smith. Rob, good to see you. Can you tell us how Watching the Watchers first came about?
Yeah, I wanted to be part of the Inside Policing series that APTN Investigates is putting on this year. And so I kind of crowdsourced with my family, and I was quite pleased to get a list of different ideas from my daughter. And it was awesome, and I pitched it, and it was accepted. And it was kind of a look at all these different aspects of policing when it came to their interactions with Aboriginal title and rights fighters. You know, what Sioux did versus CERD, going all the way back to West Coast Warriors versus INSET as they were known back then, and then bringing back up the idea of how Canada was spying on Indigenous groups 10 years ago, and whether or not they're still doing that. And that was a very cool idea, and we went with it.
What can you tell us about Kanahus and Mayuk Manuel?
They're two twin sisters. They've been front and center on the front lines on various fights over 25 years of me being a reporter. And I first ran into them at a Sun Peaks protest, Much Music back then. We had a music channel, Much Music was holding a live event, a rock concert. And you had that juxtaposition of the First Nations and the West Coast Warriors in their camouflage up against this rock concert. It was very striking. And it was the first time I had dealings with the Manuel family. Their father's Art, their grandfather's George Manuel, very great leaders for the Indigenous cause, and they're carrying that fight on. They're confrontational. They're very upfront, in your face. Their personalities are, they don't back down. And so we thought we could tell that story that interaction, that historic interaction through the eyes of these two sisters who've been doing this for 2.5 decades.
Right. What are you hoping that viewers will take away from this story?
Well, I hope the question of opposing viewpoints is something that comes up in these fights. Whose laws are being broken is kind of the theme of this show. So what you're going to see is violent altercations, and the question being asked is who started it and who's actually the criminal in what you were actually seeing. And that's what we hope will be the conversation after looking at this piece today.
Looks fascinating, Rob. Looking forward to it. Appreciate you taking some time to talk to us about it today.
Anytime now.
Little Tina House cameo there. Well, every Friday at 6:30 Eastern, Métis National delivers your headlines and much more in French. Here's host Kim Sullivan.
Hi, bonjour. Kim Sullivan, host of your weekly French news magazine, Nouvelle Nationale. Join us tonight, 6:30 Eastern, for your latest in news en français. We also spoke with the last Indigenous-owned and operated moccasin company about prioritizing Indigenous brands.
C'est clair que dans ma vie, j'ai jamais pensé que je deviendrais grand chef.
And in studio, she just stepped down from being the Grand Chief of the Cree Nation government. Mandy Galmasti and her dog Minnie join us. À ce soir.
Thanks, Kim. Good looking show there. You can watch that in about 30 seconds. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Friday. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.